To everyone who enjoys my Sopranos related videos, you're in luck, because here is a bonus video this week. So I just finished editing and uploading my Random Thoughts for Season 3 video. If you want to go see that, that is the last video on the channel right after this one. But as I was making that, I was skimming through Season 3, and I saw an example of a bad way something was done and a good way something was done. And I just want to share the difference between these two types of scenes. And specifically, what I'm talking about is blocking. What blocking is wherever the camera is situated and you have your scene or whatever location, interior, exterior, whatever the camera is filming, and you have your characters, blocking is referring to where they are positioned in the scene and in relation to the camera and how they move around and, maybe where other objects are. So I guess blocking would fall under a larger umbrella of cinematography, but it's not specifically talking about the camera and the camera setups and all that. This is what you're looking at, how the characters on screen are moving around, and what their positions and movements say. I think that type of stuff is really interesting when you can see how much information is conveyed to us just in a visual sense. This is a fun little exercise that you can do with your favorite movie or TV show or just a scene you really like, is that watch it again, but turn the sound off and just focus on the visuals and ask yourself, can you get all the information that the scene is trying to convey just from the way people are standing, how they're positioned in relation to the camera, what they're wearing, how they move around the scene? I think that type of stuff is really interesting, and it can say a lot when done well. So I'm going to start by showing you a bad example. I covered this in the Random Thoughts of Season 3 video, but I'm going to touch on it again here really quickly. It is the scene where Vito just pops out of nowhere and shoots Jackie Jr. in the back of the head. So let's take a look at that. It's short, but I think that scene is just awkwardly done. Something about it. So here's what I mean. It starts off, Jackie Jr. is just awkwardly walking down the street. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but the actor looks like he has no idea what's going on. In a way, I guess it makes sense that his character is seeming a little lost, just meandering, because that's where he is. He's just kind of on the run right now. Either way, it does just seem a little awkward to me. Like he's just kind of pitter-pattering down the street without any real purpose to his walk. And then the next shot is a stalking shot behind him. I think that one's kind of cool because it shows that, something's going to happen. So this is maybe the POV of Vito sneaking up on him. That's what we can assume. And then the next shot, Vito just pops up out of nowhere. This giant guy with this tiny gun that apparently doesn't recoil at all. I mean, when they do the wider shot, when Vito gets in the car to drive away, where did he come from? I mean, there could be some stuff off screen here to the left. And I guess another weird thing about it too is that when we first see Jackie, in the middle, but kind of towards the sidewalk end of that street, and then he's more right in the middle of the street. And then in the wide shot, when Vito's getting away, he's all the way at the edge of the street, on the other side of the street, near that sidewalk, in that lump of snow where he fell and died. Just doesn't seem consistent to me. He's kind of towards the right of the street, and then he's in the middle, and then all of a sudden he's on the other side just lying in the snow. Weird direction, weird editing, weird blocking of the characters and their movements. But here's my example of a very well done scene. I think the scene is really cool. You can get a lot of information. It's very concise. Everything about it is great. It is the scene, the stupid a fucking game, you got to be on your hat scene, where Tony and Furio go and intimidate Dr. Kennedy so he can start really taking Junior's case seriously. So the first shot starts off in what looks like a nice fall day. You got a nice golf course, Doctor's standing there, very casual, having a good game of golf. And then, coming out of the right side of the frame, we got Tony and Furio dressed in black. So let me focus for a second on just this first shot of Tony and Furio. The first thing we see from them, it's not a nice, gentle introduction where they're casually rolling onto the course. No, it's a power move. We see them barreling down this hill in this golf cart, just kind of boom, they're coming right into the shot here. This is a little more subtle, but I think the fact that they're going from right to left signals that something's wrong. They're here to cause trouble and intimidate him. There is a thing that you learn in film school, has to do with cinematography and editing and the way characters are moving on screen, that in the Western world, we're very accustomed to seeing things on screen go from left to right, because that's how we read. When you're reading a book, it goes like that. It just seems a little like something's wrong when things are on screen moving from right to left. An interesting example that I can think of that I recently saw was I just watched the movie The Master for the first time, and there was a scene where Joaquin Phoenix's character was accused of poisoning this guy at this place he was working, and then they're saying, hey, you poisoned him, we're gonna get you. And he's running away from everyone, and they're chasing him. He's running across this big field going from right to left, not from left to right. It's supposed to help signal that he caused trouble. Not all is well. You know, it's our eyes aren't accustomed to seeing things naturally go in that way. I'm not saying every instance you see of things going from right to left implies that there's trouble and something's wrong, but sometimes it is, and sometimes you notice a pattern, and it's interesting when you see that kind of stuff. So let's move on. Okay, so the very next shot is Tony and Furio. They do another little power move here. Whoa, they almost hit him right there. You see that? They don't just casually pull up and go out and shake his hand. No, they're here to scare the shit out of him. So a lot of things in the scene are just done to show them as the badass mafioso guys. So as soon as Tony gets out of the golf cart, notice where he's standing. He's standing a little more uphill from Dr. Candy. It's subtle, but he's higher than him. Now this is being done to show that Tony has the power in the situation. He caught that guy off guard. He's standing slightly above Hill. Not much, not an extreme amount, but enough so that he seems taller. When you draw a line, his eyesight is going down. Candy's looking up at him. It makes Tony seem bigger and more intimidating, more threatening, makes Dr. Kennedy seem smaller and more scared. Not only does he seem smaller and he's downhill, but he's right by a body of water here. He's got nowhere to go. He's feeling cornered. I also like how Furio comes out to the side of Dr. Kennedy to the left there, just to kind of flank him. You know, it kind of reminds me of the Eric Andre show where you always have that guy stand up behind someone just to make him feel uncomfortable. The fact that Tony is on an angle that's a little bit higher than Dr. Kennedy is further emphasized in the conversational close-up shots going back and forth. When you look over Tony's shoulder at Dr. Kennedy, you're looking down over his shoulder. And when you are looking at Tony from Dr. Kennedy's point of view, you're looking up over his shoulder at him. So further emphasizes that power dynamic in how they're standing. So let's talk about color for a second. So I like how Tony and Furio are more or less dressed identically as far as their color goes. They're both wearing all black, black leather, intimidating. They're the bad guys. They're the outlaws. They're the dangerous people. The bad cowboy in town usually wears black. It's just ingrained in our brains to see them as the dangerous people here. And note when we look at Dr. Kennedy, he's wearing almost all blue. His hat's like a dark navy, his fleece is a nice rich royal blue or whatever you call that. And one thing that I learned from watching the Breaking Bad shows, particularly Vince Gilligan, is very into his color theory. If you're familiar with the show, maybe you know this, maybe you don't, there's a purpose to the color. And one thing I remember though is that he put a lot of the lawful characters in blue. This was particularly done in Better Call Saul. A lot of the righteous, lawful people were wearing blue. So since I mentioned that Tony and Furio's black leather jackets can emphasize the fact that they're dangerous and they're outlaws, I think the fact that Dr. Kennedy is wearing a nice blue fleece here emphasizes the fact that he is just an innocent civilian. He is on the lawful side of things. He's not like them. It separates them. And, you know, the choice of outfit here, too. I mean, that's a fancy fleece, expensive, very clean fleece. These guys show up wearing leather jackets. You know, they're here to fuck shit up. Another thing about color that I find interesting is that when Tony offers him the golf club, notice that very bright red bow he put on it to emphasize the gift. What does red make us think of? There's that story of Adam and Eve's story with the red apple. It's temptation. There's a certain temptation in what they're doing here. You know, it's like, hey, accept this gift from the mafia guys. If you do, you owe us something, you know? It's like a Faustian bargain he's making with them if he takes that club. So the red symbolizes the temptation and the danger from the offer they're offering. Another little power move Tony does here that I think is pretty funny is that towards the middle of the scene when Kennedy's golfing buddies who are a little bit out there, they call out and say, hey, what's going on? Tony answers for him. Like a child at a restaurant, you order for them or something. Tony's just putting this guy in his place. So speaking of the blocking and the character movements, after he takes the golf club and Tony and Furio start to get serious with their threats, what they're here to do, they start walking towards him. And you know how I mentioned Kennedy has nowhere to go? He's feeling closed in. He doesn't go to his left or his right. He just starts walking backwards. He wants to keep his distance, but he can't go too far because there's the water. And this shot here really emphasizes the height power dynamic, how they're higher on the hill than he is. Look how small he looks here. That's crazy. The shot of Furio here is done from a downward angle, kind of makes him look a little scarier, bigger, more intimidating. And then the very next shot of Dr. Kennedy is done from an upward angle, making him seem smaller. So the threats start to get more serious. Tony and Furio take another few steps. Kennedy has nowhere to go. Now he's really stuck. Doesn't want to ruin his nice outfit and go farther into the lake, so he steps in. He goes, oh crap, I got my shoe wet. What have I gotten myself into? And then to humiliate him even farther, Furio does his classic line here.
You gotta be on your hat.
After he gets his hat whacked off, look at the facial expression and angle that Dr. Kennedy is looking at. He's looking down and away from Tony and Furio. He's not even looking at them. He's scared. He's confused. And then before the scene ends, Tony does one last power move. Dr. Kennedy is trying to make a voice memo or phone call or whatever. What is that? Is that a pager or a recorder or a cell phone? I can't really tell because he's holding it kind of tight in his hand. Either way, whatever he's doing, Tony just whacks that device right out of his hand into the water. Just gives him a taste of what these people are capable of if he doesn't follow their request. Does he seem happy about this? No. Look at his face as they drive away. He probably regrets taking Junior as a patient right now. So let's just take the very last shot in the scene. Tony and Furio get back into the golf cart, nice and clean. They're cool. They got what they wanted. They drive away. Dr. Kennedy is off to the left. He's even farther down the hill than when he started. His hat's in the water. His phone or whatever that was is in the water. He's looking miserable. He's mostly in shadow there. I think it's interesting that even if you watch the scene without any of the audio, I mean, you're going to miss some great Furio lines, but you're going to get all the information that they're trying to cover in this scene just on the acting, the way it's filmed, and the way the characters are positioned in relation to the camera. I really think this stuff is kind of fascinating where you try and get as much visual information you can from what you're looking at, even without any of the sound. That's just a sign of good cinematography, good acting, and good blocking and direction of the characters and actors. Compared to the earlier one I showed of the scene where Jackie Jr. gets shot, something just seems awkward about that. It just didn't seem to flow very well. This scene is filmed, acted, and blocked very well. So next time you're watching your favorite movie or TV show, pay attention to this kind of stuff because it will enrich the viewing experience for you. You'll get more out of it when you start to really, really pay attention to the colors of everything and how the actors are positioned, how they move about the frame. Love that kind of stuff. I think it's really awesome. That's all for me today. Just want to make a quick little bonus video. If you stuck around to this point, thank you very much. I appreciate it as always, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.